Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about participation levels. And the question for this video is, do you have guidelines, rubrics, or an equivalent grading document within your assignments and activities to explain how students' participation is evaluated? Angie, we'll start with you.
Yes, so I do have rubric. I have a discussion rubric that is published in the syllabus, and it's how I grade all of the weekly discussions, and they know that from the outset. We as a department have worked really hard to coordinate those expectations too, so that they are consistent among courses. And then in addition to that, I also publish kind of a do's and don'ts in my syllabus of the kinds of ways you should interact on the discussion board, which could include anything from just being kind and being respectful to being thorough. So you don't just say, "Oh, I agree," and give a sentence and that's a sufficient response. So just to give students some guidelines on what's expected as far as their discussions is really important as well. And then whenever we do group presentations and things like that online too, I also post some guidelines for what it means to be an audience and how even being an audience as part of that media is really important too.
Awesome. Emery, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree. And I do issue guidelines at the very beginning of the semester, and I probably have that in multiple places again at risk of repetition, but it's good that they just have it. The other thing that I would do is after the first week, during the second week, I'll look at everything that students have done. And if they're not meeting the guidelines, even for the first week, I will have a separate meeting with them. And that usually involves 3 or 4 students that I'll sort of virtually, if you will, pull out of class and have a separate meeting with them. And for some of them, it's just a matter of going, "Oh, I didn't realize that was so important," or "It's not graded, but yeah, well, it wasn't graded, but it's still complete and complete. You have to do it for the class." And 1 or 2 students may have another issue, like a technology issue, and then I can get them some help. So I will always target those students that didn't do it right at the very beginning in the first week so that we get up to speed. The other thing, I do have rubrics and they're published, and I would do the grading on a 1 to 5 scale because I don't want to be splitting hairs between a discussion form response that's an 88 versus an 85 or an 83. It's better to just do 0 through 5 or 1 through 5. And that way it's easier for me to assess their work. It's easier for them to get a sense of it, and I can respond faster that way.
I just say rubrics are the way to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I love a rubric, and I think there was a time in my life that I couldn't stand rubrics, but now working online, it simplifies.
It's
So
essential.
yes, I think it's really key. And I think for every, may it be a yellow dig, may it be a discussion forum within Canvas, may it be, a Flipgrid, having the, explain this is what I want to see. And even in some of the responses we have, like Angie mentioned earlier, you're doing your first post by, Tuesday, you're doing your first response by Thursday, you're doing another follow-up response by Sunday, having a rubric that explains what is expected in all of those different instances. So if they miss maybe one of those responses, how many points will they still have if they do the first post and then the last post? So I think those are key, and it helps students understand. I have a student this semester that already told me she's taking 27 hours. And I was like, how are you taking 27 hours? That's just insane. Like, who even allowed you to do that? But she was like, tell me what I need to do to succeed. And it was nice because I was able to send her our FAQ for our discussion post. I was like, this is what you need to do. And she was like, okay, now I know exactly where I can maximize my discussion post. So
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to students to tell them right away, this is what it looks like. So I will say I'm a firm believer in a rubric and a detailed rubric and some sort of FAQ or some sort of just explanation of what you're expecting and maybe even a sample of what you're looking for. Other thoughts on this one, guys?
I like that you talked about the importance of the timeliness of the discussions and the posts throughout the week, because I like to explain to my students too how that timeliness really builds community, that it keeps it a vibrant and active discussion post if we're all posting throughout the week. So that if they come afterwards and say, "Oh, I missed it, can I make it up?" I explain, you can't, because this is what it was. It was building that community during the week. So I try to explain that from the outset so we don't run into the problem later.
And
Yeah, so that every day.
we've gone as far as to have a contract that says if you're doing group work, you follow this and everyone signs off on it. And if you don't follow it, you're kind of voted out of the park. And then when you're voted out of the park, you come to my park and we get to talk about if you get to go back to the other lands in the class. So
That's very effective.
What other
Yeah.
thoughts do you have real quick?
No, just having multiple deadlines for discussion forums is very important.